Who?
Mr. Powell.
Who?
No.
Yeah, I was looking off that way.
Ready? All right, I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the April 19th, 2022 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes, April 19th.
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. I want to make sure everybody had time to read it. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. And Luke will abstain because he wasn't here last time. All right. Third item on the agenda tonight is the discussion on regulations in regards to the Paola Land Development Ordinance, Article 3, Section 3.210, accessory uses, residential.
Okay, so staff review necessitated taking a look to revise the current wording of the land development ordinance, section 3.210, accessory uses residential. Upon further research, other municipalities allow for more flexible storage requirements pertaining specifically to boats, RVs, and commercial vehicles than what's currently worded in the LDO. The section 3.210 subsection E states that the storage of boats, recreational vehicles, or trucks, and it says no boats, recreational vehicles, trailers with cars or other vehicles, or commercial trucks shall be stored in the driveway or in front of the house. Such vehicles shall only be permitted in the rear yards, provided they meet the setback requirements for a storage shed. No vehicle greater than 30 feet shall be permitted on lots less than 2 acres. Boats or RVs of up to 45 feet shall be permitted on lots greater than 2 acres. Attachment A is a working draft of some updated language. And just wanted to point out that the second paragraph on here that says storage of trailers with cars or other vehicles shall only be permitted in rear yards, provided they meet the setback requirements for an accessory structure. That is specifically speaking to trailers, a utility trailer. If you have a work trailer and you have a project car or you're storing something on that trailer, that would only be permitted in the rear yard. So I want to make sure when you're reading through that you weren't confusing that specific thing down below, because it does allow front yard parking below that if you meet certain requirements. I wanted to make sure that you're made aware of that. Do you want me to go through and read these and you go line item by line item, or how would you prefer?
How would you do it? Discuss it line item by line item, or you want to just discuss it in total?
Tyson's question,
You sure?
Sure.
what caused this possible change to what possibly take place?
Okay, so what happened is we had a complaint of a vehicle greater than 40, I think it was greater than 40 feet parked in a front driveway. And so our nuisance codes enforcement officer wrote the gentleman a letter and said that it needed to be moved. And I guess prior to him in his position, he was under the understanding that it was okay from a previous codes standpoint. Once that came about, we started noticing around town more and more RVs parked in unique locations. So instead of then going around and going person to person and having them move them, we decided this is common for homeowners to have an RV parked or a boat parked. And while it didn't meet the standards, it was parked appropriately in a clean, well-kept environment. The RV, the boat, the commercial truck was in operating condition, whereas the original one was not. So to allow more flexibility for homeowners to use their property for also for storage, instead of forcing them to have offsite storage for something, we just decided maybe it is time, since this was originally written, probably, I mean, the LDO started in 1997, so it probably has not been looked at since then. Now, other parts of this section have been, but not this specific storage section. So this also includes like storage sheds and outbuildings like that. That's been recently updated. This specific one hasn't. So it's just kind of time to go back, look at it, make sure that we are allowing the most options for citizens to store.
Makes good sense, thank you.
Is this mainly referring to like driveways, or is it referring to streets / front yards? Like, how is this gonna be?
So the idea, the goal is to keep them in the rear yards if possible, if they have rear yard access, i.e. coming off of an alley. Most of the homes in town that are not allowed RVs are run by HOAs. They don't.
Right, that's what,
So-
that was my next point. It's-
So to help with that, this is mainly looking at the interior. I understand it'll cover everyone.
Yeah.
But who it will affect is the interior portion of town, since Rockwood has an HOA and they're not allowed there. And if you live, say, in Country Club where there are no alleys, then the goal would be then to allow side yard. So if you could have in your driveway and then a wing around the side of your house, or an extra, if you have a 2-car garage, but you can still pour like a 3rd car pad off of your driveway, that would be a goal. It
Well, because I
just-
know, speaking from experience living in the country club,
Mhm.
and right now I have my truck, trailer, and skid loader parked in front of my house.
Mm.
So where is that gonna fall?
So you have a trailer with a utility vehicle. If it's parked on the street, we're not looking at street parking. We're
Okay.
only looking at storage.
Because I know when the LDO went into effect in 97, that was the big deal, was they were saying that any commercial vehicle in general, like just a work van with a name on it, wasn't allowed to park out front.
Sure,
Because I remember that was a big, that was a very hot topic back then.
sure.
So this is just referring to people parking their yard.
Yes,
side yard.
it's to keep them off of the grass and on some sort of parking
It would,
surface.
because you're familiar with Country Club.
Yeah,
And if you come down over Hill Drive, you've got Dave Smale,
mhm,
who's got an RV. He has a separate driveway next to his house.
right,
He's got his RV parked in there. There's now at the top of the hill, there's that little house, somebody's bought that, and they have their camper parked in the driveway. And if you drive around town and you look, there are a lot of campers parked in driveways.
yeah,
There's several boats parked in driveways. Some of them have access to rear yards, but a lot of them don't. You can't
Right.
get to a rear yard because there's trees in the side yards, or the side yards aren't wide enough to
right,
back the trailer down. Technically, they can't park those there currently. They can only be in this back behind
correct,
the
yeah,
house. So this is to try to kind of bring this from 97 up to now into what are people doing now and what should be allowed. And
yeah, because I live on Hillcrest, for
Yeah.
instance, so I've got 3.5 feet of property on the north side of my house.
Yep.
From the edge of my house to the property line. On the south side, I've only got about 8.5 feet.
Yep.
So there's really no way to do
Yeah.
anything there.
right,
And then you get neighborhoods like Indian Hills where the houses are even tighter together.
Yeah.
And there's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing to do there.
Yes.
Planning, city code, trump HOAs.
Yes, HOA has their own, and they can enforce it within their subdivision. We do not follow HOA guidelines.
I maybe reverse question then. HOAs have, do they follow city codes or can they have things?
They follow city
Contrary
code,
to
but they follow city code, but they can also be more restrictive within, and that's something you're made up.
I live-
up front.
We have an HOA, so it gets me thinking,
Yeah, most time they're more restricted.
they are,
Yeah.
and which gets me thinking of, well, who's following who? They should be following city code, but they're a lot more restricted. I just got an email, they're, actually, I live in Rockwood, they're talking about not even, they don't even want street parking.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my son's home from college, we have 4 cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, at any given time at our house, so
Yeah,
it's hard not to street park.
oh, yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
and I would worry about trying to get too restricted, because then you get into the whole overreach side of it, to where most of your citizens will, they'll argue all day long that if I wanted these kind of rules,
And I
I
think
would
if
just
you,
join an HOA.
That's stay in the city.
Right.
yeah, and I think if you read here, you'll find compared to what it was originally, there is an increased amount of flexibility in where you can park, because it does allow for front yard parking, i.e. driveway parking,
Mhm.
if it meets some criteria. So I think the best way maybe then is to just dive in, go line item by line item, and that way we kind of.
We can do that.
Okay, so I'll just start. The draft text amendment is stay the same, the outdoor storage of boats, recreational vehicles. I included camping trailers, i.e. pop-ups, or commercial vehicles shall conform to the following requirements. Storage of trailers with cars or other vehicles shall only be permitted in rear yards, provided they meet the setback requirements of an accessory structure. So this would mean if you're going to pull your trailer, your work trailer, if possible, if you were to put it in your rear yard, it could not be on property line, it would have to come in 5 feet.
I understand why.
So there's, and then feel free to stop me at any moment that you guys need to discuss anything.
Question. Why are trailers with cars or other vehicles specifically identified rather than just commercial?
I left it in, it was part of the original. And I left that text in there. If you drive around town, more so on the southwest side of town, you will see that it is common for people to have a hobby vehicle.
Okay.
A lot of them are trailered because they simply can't leave them parked
Gotcha. Okay.
off. Otherwise, they get a ticket for
So
inoperable.
it's kind of a recreational vehicle that's parked on a trailer. It's not a mechanic.
For business use?
Business in his backyard.
No, it would be like if you were gonna haul, if you had an old vehicle or a wrecked vehicle and you were going to haul it off, or you went out and you purchased an antique vehicle and you were planning to work on it, if
Okay.
it was just, or if you have scrap on a trailer that you're gonna take, and you're gonna take it to the dump and you just haven't got there yet.
All right, just,
And by all means, this is all up for discussion, so
that's why I'm trying to learn what's what.
okay, so it is permissible to park or store not more than 2 boats, recreational vehicles, including camping trailers, or commercial vehicles on a single family or 2-family lot, provided the following criteria are met. The boat, recreational vehicle, including camping trailers, or commercial vehicle shall be parked in a garage, the side yard, or the rear yard, but not the front yard, except as provided in subsection 7 below.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
On that first sentence,
Mhm.
instead of saying it is permissible to park, could you say it is not permissible to park more than 2 boats recreational? And I read that the first time, I'm thinking, is it or isn't it?
We're
It-
giving
it-
them permission to park no more than 2, like combination. So
Right,
if you had an RV and a boat, you could park those. You could park those in, it's just saying it is permissible to park as long as it meets this criteria.
okay.
So it's saying you may park your vehicles if it meets the following criteria.
So. you
Is it
could
the
have-
not more than 2 that's kind of reading wonky?
Yeah, because the way I read it is, I could have 2 boats, I could have 2 campers, I could have 2 commercial vehicles.
Okay.
all stacked in my backyard or wherever.
So we
whatever it
need to
says.
rewrite, it is not more, it is not any combination of two,
I think all you have to do is put any,
okay,
not more than any
okay,
two.
okay.
Yeah.
Any, that might be.
Or just add total.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't get what you're, I
You
get what
can
you're
have a
saying.
camper and a
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
You
no
can have
more
a
than
camper
two
and a boat,
combined.
The
But you
first
can't
is
have a
the-
camper and a
Yeah.
boat, another
Yeah.
boat and.
driving the camper,
Right.
pulling the boat, pulling the wrecked vehicle.
Right.
Sure, sounds good.
Exactly.
Okay, so where did we go with one? Okay, 2, the boat, recreational vehicle, including camping trailers or commercial vehicle shall meet the setback requirements for an accessory structure. So this is saying if it's parked in a side or a rear yard, then it has to be a setback that meets X amount of feet. And it also in this Article 3, it has those setbacks listed in a previous section. Number 3, the recreational vehicle, including camping trailers, shall not be used for on-site dwelling purposes or permanently connected to sewer, water, or electrical lines, or used for storage.
Can you define permanently connected?
Hardwired into an electrical. So from what I understand with an RV, you have an RV? you can-
Have one.
I
Yeah.
have an
You have an
RV.
RV, so those don't plug into a normal outlet, correct?
Right.
You actually have to have an electrician come out and wire out or something.
Well, there's a plug. I put a plug on outside of my house that I can plug my camper into.
So it's just saying like a permanent sewer line, you can't plumb out to it, you can't have. I understand why you have your electrical, if you're gonna plug it in and use it, but it's just saying you can't have a special hookup specifically installed just for this, for living purposes, would be what it's meant to say.
I get it.
I would almost venture to say campers and RVs shouldn't be allowed to hook up to sewer at all.
I don't know that it says anywhere where they can, this is just specifically saying they cannot.
Okay.
And I have mine. I have a clean out over by my trailer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could clean my tanks and winterize.
Right.
All of that stuff. But so I hook up to it. It's
Yeah.
not a permanent hookup.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand, for a day or something
Right.
winterizing. But I mean, like more than a few days or a
Right.
week, because then it's starting to look like a permanent residence.
No, I think the purpose is you don't want people, you don't want an Airbnb out in somebody's backyard in their camper.
Right, correct.
The recreational vehicle shall be owned by the resident upon whose property it is parked. Number 5, the boat, recreational vehicle, including camping trailers or commercial vehicle shall be operable. Its equipment shall be used in a usable working condition at all times, no leaking fluids, and maintained in a clean, well-kept state that does not detract from the appearance of the surrounding area.
Quick question,
Yep.
sorry. Like vehicles have to be properly registered and licensed.
Mhm.
In Kansas, you have,
Mhm.
trailers up to a certain size, you have to register and license. Does that need to be part, I've read through this, does that need to be stated?
I think that's what she just read, basically.
Well, it says they can't be there. Shall be operable. I was wondering,
We can,
do they, should a boat,
we can add, similar to what the city code says, with current registration or something
Yeah.
along those lines, if you want me to add something. that
Yeah, that'd
reads-
probably be a good
I
idea.
think that's a good idea. In other words, legal to be on the state highway.
well, that, and also, you have to have your KS or K number on your boats, and
Yeah,
they have to be registered to be on lakes.
Okay. Number 6, the area the boat, recreational vehicle, including camping trailers or commercial vehicle is parked on is required to be a hard surface parking pad if the parking area takes access from a hard surface. The parking area is not required to be paved, provided the area has access from a non-paved alley. So the intent behind this section, this number specifically, is if you are coming off of your driveway in front and you're doing an extension, it would have to be hard surface, asphalt, concrete pavers, that nature. And then if you are taking access off the alley, if you're pulling in off the alley, you could pull in off the alley from gravel to a gravel parking surface.
So no gravel off your concrete.
No gravel off your concrete, and that would be in line with the city code, which states that all new parking surfaces shall be hard surfaced.
That's gonna be driving around town. There's a lot of people with their campers in their backyard. I'm one of them.
Well,
And I'm probably, 60 foot from the street.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna put a 60-foot paved driveway into my backyard.
Right. So right now, you would be considered a conformed use, you would be considered legally parked. It is common practice that if you are parking and you are conforming to what is currently there, when a new ordinance is adopted or amended, you don't bring it up to current standards. So right now you are in compliance and you would not be expected to change anything about the way you park. It would be for someone who is not in compliance right now. If you have, say you have a 45-foot bus in your front driveway and you're going to park it on the side of your house, then you would be required to pour a hard surface pad on the side of your house and then move the bus to the side of the house. Does that clarify?
No.
Okay. No, you're fine.
Forgive me.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay, the way that I read this, it says that or commercial vehicle is parked, so it's sitting
Mhm.
on the parking that it's parked on is required to be hard surface parking pad for the parking area taking access to the hard surface. Okay. To me, that is, there's my camper sitting on a hard surface.
Mhm.
Here's the street out here,
Which is hard surface.
which is hard surface. This, to me, as I read it, doesn't say I need to connect these two.
Right, so that's where, this is just a general guideline of ideas. That's where this whole thing, so I did pull from the city north of us. They specifically have written into one of their codes that, let's see. Any recreational vehicle must be parked or stored or driven to and from said parking or storage area on a dust-free, rut-free surface, including, without being limited to, any such areas covered with grass, ground cover, water permeable grass pavers. So basically, if you wanted to, you could write something in that says, if you are coming off of your driveway and going to park in the back, it has to be hard
But-
surface.
Just so I'm clear that right now, we're not saying that.
Right now, I am in agreement with you, it's very vague, that if you're coming off of a hard surface, i.e. city street, i.e. driveway, those are hard surface. Then whatever, if you have a hard surface driveway and you want to park over here, you want to add a little wing parking pad, this wing parking pad would have to be hard surface.
That I understand.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
like-
if you are
like the
gonna park
scenario-
in the rear of your house, you are asking me if your driveway's here and you wanna wing around and go park in the back, you are asking me if this needs
has
to be hard
Hard
surface.
surface.
And I would say to you, that is where you gentlemen would have the ability to discuss on what that would look like.
Okay.
Was that Spring Hill?
City of Olathe, I believe.
Will you read it again?
Sure.
About the grass buffer or whatever.
Okay, it says, Any recreational vehicle must be parked or stored or driven to and from said parking or storage area on a dust-free and rut-free surface, including, without being limited to, any such areas covered with grass, ground cover, water permeable grass pavers, cement, asphalt, or other similar ground cover. Parking, storage, or driving on gravel or exposed dirt is prohibited, provided, however, driving on a gravel driveway that has been previously established as a lawful, non-conforming use is permitted. So it kind of covers what you're speaking to.
I'm just thinking if we're writing something to where somebody, well, like take my neighbor, he has a real nice pad out behind his house, parks his camper back there, but he's got probably 50 foot back there. Most people that have travel trailer, they're out, what, 4 or 5 times?
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna put that expense of a hard surface. So with grass or anything that doesn't create dust, if that's the purpose,
Mhm.
then that's not an issue then.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should add something like that. Because that's just preventing people, because I know there's probably, I can think of probably a couple yards in town that, you know, they go around the house the opposite of their driveway, and it looks like a beaten dirt path. So that's just that wording avoids that. Or as long as you just keep your grass growing, you can access. Because my house, for instance, the only side of my house I can get to my backyard is the opposite side of the house of my driveway.
And where you have that happening are people that are pulling in and out on a daily basis. Yeah.
Right.
In your case, you back over the curb. Do you
No,
not?
actually, I pull in my driveway and
And
then
then
I
go angle
turn it.
around.
I
Yeah.
angle around. Just makes it easier than trying to.
So I think if we add some verbiage
Similar to this.
similar to that,
Okay.
that way
Yeah,
it draws the line if people are trying to overthink a vague.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they're gonna have, like, in my case, if I wanted to put my trailer back behind my house, which I can't, but if I did, I'd have to drive up over the curb and drive through my yard
Right.
to get to there. Because I can't come off I've got a pad off my driveway, but there's no way I could drop down 6 foot and drive around.
I like that because it'll hold down dust and it just, I mean, it makes the neighborhood look better when it's, you don't have.
Well, the deal where they said that they didn't want a rut-filled passage.
Yeah.
There's places around town, I've seen that where people go in and out. And it just looks like an old country road.
Yep.
And all the dirt washes out in the street. So that's not a bad wording there.
I actually had to make dirt in when I moved into my house because former owner had done that.
Yeah.
Most alleys, to get off of an alley, can't get a 30 or 40 foot vehicle to turn around in an alley to go back up in the yard.
Yeah.
Because running a wrecker all these years, pulling people's stuff out of the backyard is
Mhm.
rough.
Yeah.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
So this is number 7. This is where we're going to possibly allow a driveway parking. It says parking of one recreational vehicle or boat is permitted on a front driveway, provided that the following conditions are met. There is no reasonable access to the rear yard, the rear or side yard. A lot shall be deemed to have reasonable access to the rear or side yard if the side yards are 10 feet or more in width. There are no large trees, trunk 4 inches in caliber, or large shrubs 6 foot in height in the side yards. Corner lots shall normally be deemed to have reasonable access to the rear yard. A fence shall not be deemed as preventing reasonable access. There is alley access. Inside parking is not possible. No part of the recreational vehicle shall extend over side yards, sidewalks, or street right of way. So let's just look at number 7 first, and we can walk it back if you guys want. So
So basically what it says is, if you can't park it anywhere else, put it in your driveway. You can have one vehicle, one item in your driveway, but it cannot extend over the right of way or a sidewalk.
Yes.
Can't block a sidewalk or extend over the right of way.
Pretty well covered.
Yeah.
How many? A lot of our city doesn't have sidewalks.
That was my
They-
I mean,
question.
should we
don't.
put a footage at like a size?
Everyone's right of way is a bit different. We
Right.
could. Some people's right of way is 5 foot, some people's right of way is 20 foot. So if we were to do something that's all encompassing, someone could have a longer vehicle, but so if my right of way is 20 foot and yours is only 5 foot, our RVs theoretically are gonna be different sizes. But if that's something you wanna look at.
No, just kind of a question, I was just.
Yeah,
curious.
and generally speaking, a good judge is, if you look down the line at the power poles, they're on, or the street lights on the corners, those tend to kind of be a judge of right of way widths. But that is up to you all.
I think the way it's written, it covers
Yeah, I do too.
most instances.
Yeah.
Because if somebody has a sidewalk, we don't want to be blocking the sidewalk. If they don't have a sidewalk, we don't want it out on the right of way to where the city crew can't work and
Hanging
they
over the
can't.
curb.
On the edge of the, or they put it right on the edge of the curb.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, like in my case, I've got a camper and I can put it on my pad in the driveway, but the tongue is gonna rest out in the city right away. So I can't park it in my driveway, even if I wanted to, it's too big. So that takes care of, I think, everybody with the side, for some of the areas with sidewalks and some of the areas without.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Number 8, recreational vehicles, including camping trailers, may be parked on the front drive for up to 2 days to load and 2 days to unload as related to a trip. So this is kind of a fairness to everyone. You can park for a couple days regardless if you're allowed front yard, side yard, rear yard, wherever it'll fit. This is just a way, if you're hauling stuff in and out, keep it short, clean it out, what you were speaking to earlier, and then go park it where it's traditionally parked.
Question on that.
Sure.
I believe, I think I actually talked to you at one time. As long as your vehicle is attached to the trailer, you can park it out front for however long. So would this be that your vehicle can be detached
Yes.
from your camper
If-
for
yes,
no
if you-
more than 2 days?
Yep, if you have a travel trailer,
Right.
this would be
Okay.
just for that, just for
Okay, so you can detach it,
detach it, clean it out,
Okay.
and organize whatever you need to do, and then move it to where
but as
you.
long as it's connected to the tow vehicle, then that falls into a different category then.
I'd have to double check that.
Yes, it can park on the street as long as it's hooked to the tow vehicle, but I don't know if there's a length of time maximum.
I want to say 3 days,
It
but I'm not.
might be, I know it has to be attached.
Mhm.
You don't want to leave it with being unattached.
Are you asking driveway, or are you asking street?
I'm asking street.
Street, yeah, street, we tend not to get into that, we let the police department.
Okay. Because I asked for a personal reason, because there's times when it's raining.
Mhm.
I don't want my camper
Yeah.
in my backyard because I don't want to
Right.
create ruts.
Yes.
So I leave it
Yeah,
on the
you
street.
can, you are allowed to have a truck and a trailer parked and leave it on the street. You can check with them.
I think I did. They told me.
Yeah, I had an issue with them a few years ago. My RV was parked in front of my house for 2 days because we got back from a trip. And I got a nice note on the letter on the windshield from the police department to move it. So I came down and asked them to just show me
Mhm.
where it says what I have to do, and they couldn't provide me with anything.
Yeah. Because I think I was told that as long as you want it to,
Right,
is what I was told.
and I explained, it was tagged insured.
I can clarify that, this, and I'll moving forward, and let you guys know. So that's,
I don't think that needs to be changed. I think that's good. I did notice, I read Spring Hills and I actually called Spring Hill because there is 211 pages. Their code book. They have similar, they say 48 hours, but they also say that if you move it, you can't just move it within 30 days and it start over.
So
I'm not saying we need to add that, but I thought it was, and I think Oswatimi says it as well.
is that for street parking or?
Yeah, they didn't really address individual. Theirs was commercial property and street parking.
Mhm,
And because I caught the lady I spoke with, she didn't really give me anything for residential.
Sure.
Um,
And if you look at Spring Hill, a lot of theirs, especially the newer ones, they're all subdivisions that probably are driven by
HOA,
HOA.
yeah.
So,
because I just thought it was interesting. Basically what they said is you can park it for 48 hours, but you can't move it and then bring it back
Yeah,
within 30 days.
yeah, so you can't.
You can't park it, you can't move it 5
Make it
feet.
disappear, or make it disappear for one day and then put it back.
Right, yeah, which I thought was interesting that I don't think we should add that, but I thought it was interesting that they went that far with it.
next one, number 9, no tarps or other non-fitting covers may be used on boats, recreational vehicles, or commercial vehicles. If the recreational vehicle has slides or pop-up, they must be stored in the closed position. I know previously it was said if you have something non-conforming, like a trailer with stuff on it, if you tarped it, it was fine where it was. With the intent of kind of cleaning up and organizing town better, I feel that this one's kind of important to make sure that everything is neat and tidy, especially if you have the newer RVs that have the larger slides, if they're stored in, and the pop-up campers are stored in a closed manner. That way, we're not left wondering, the code enforcement officer isn't left wondering if someone's living there, and it just helps.
On the non-fitting covers.
Mhm.
I'm sure that's mainly word for the boats that have the actual legitimate from the factory covers. What about the difference between that and, they make the generic covers for campers? I mean, technically, somebody could argue that it's a fitted cover,
Mhm.
because most of them, you guys have RVs, they
Yeah,
make them for
corners.
almost your footage and everything.
Yeah.
But,
But it's not like a OEM product,
right,
the original.
right.
So if you wanted to, yeah, we could write something we could write something, any non-specific covering,
Or maybe you just put like no tarps or makeshift covers.
There you go.
Because I think if
Yeah.
it's commercial, you buy it, whether it fits properly or
Yeah,
not. You-
if it's
Right.
intended, if you're using it for its intended purpose,
Right.
then
Right,
that would
right.
be okay.
My grill cover says made for my grill, and it looked,
Right,
it looks like a
Yes.
stock.
right.
So what
Yeah.
you said, makeshift,
Yeah, I'd say no tarps or makeshift covers
Yeah.
may be used.
I think you're going to, I think that's good, except I think you're going to get into a situation where you're going to have to define that at some point.
Mhm.
If somebody ever challenges it.
For
So,
the loophole chaser.
yeah, and I like the non-fitting, because those that you do buy for your travel trailer, RV or whatever, they are fitted.
I think it's important to keep in mind for those instances where you're purchasing an aftermarket cover for your RV, it's going to be noticeable
Right.
that it was made for the use that you're using it for.
Yeah.
What it's just getting away from is throwing 4 tarps over an RV that isn't operable and hiding
Right.
an eyesore.
Right.
So that's kind of what it's there for.
Will that be a problem for boat owners?
I don't think so, because driving around, I don't see a lot of boats with makeshift tarps.
Okay,
They either have factory covers or they're not covered at all.
okay.
There's one on Pearl Street down by the funeral home. It's out all the time without a cover on it. So,
There's a travel trailer also on Osage down just north of, or what is it, east of the park,
Mhm.
where they have one of those fitted covers.
Mhm.
It's parked right next to their
Yep.
house. They have one of those fitted
Yeah.
covers on
okay.
it. Okay.
And then, so moving on, the LDO doesn't have very many definitions for it. So if we're updating the lingo regarding these, we should update the language around what a vehicle is, what a recreational vehicle is, what a commercial motor vehicle is, and what a trailer is. I think right now, the only language in there is specifically for the commercial motor vehicle. And so it's important, I think, then to define these so that when you are speaking with a citizen, it's very clear what you're speaking about. You guys just want to read through those and then if you have any suggestions, let me know.
The only thing I had was under vehicle.
Mhm.
I kind of got lost on the stationary rails or tracks.
So this definition is taken directly from the police department, what they use, the standard traffic code,
Okay,
what they have there. If you feel the need to kind of water it down a little bit, we could look at doing that. I mean, we can take out that the last.
yeah, I couldn't figure out what stationary rails or tracks, what kind of vehicle would have.
A tank, you can't drive it, you can drive a tank.
Yeah,
Tank is permissible,
Or a sleigh.
yeah. Yeah,
Well, you got a wheelchair that's motorized,
but that's,
and that would be,
that's
it doesn't say
acceptable.
ramps. A lot of ramps are put in when somebody needs that to move around.
accepting electric personal mobility devices or devices upon which human power are used exclusively. On
So it's
station.
just saying a vehicle is not a train, a vehicle is not a streetcar.
Yeah,
It's not a personal
It's
motorized.
saying what it is except for.
Yeah,
yeah,
because
okay.
that electric personal, I mean, you see people up and
We do
riding up
have,
and down the
yeah,
street.
we
on
do
their
have
electric.
a couple
Like
citizens
car
that
chairs,
utilize.
yeah.
ATVs,
No, like
That has
personal
its
mobile
own-
devices, yeah,
That has its own.
oh, deal.
yeah.
It's got its own deal.
Recreational vehicle, anything that you dislike about this one?
I was fine with that.
Okay, commercial motor vehicle. This one is also taken from what is already written in our city code. So I felt that was
Traffic
important to kind of,
Yeah, so I think that's okay.
I find it funny, that I come from a third world country and transporting 16 people, well, that could be done in a Volkswagen Bug. I've seen it.
Yeah. They go up on I-35 in the mornings and look at some of those vans that go down through.
and then trailer, anything you all like want to change about trailer? So moving forward, our requirement is to host a public hearing with these changes so that the public can comment. Since we're changing the text in the land development ordinance and it affects citizens, that requires a public hearing. So our option is for me to go back, make the changes that you guys have suggested, and then bring it back to you in July and have you look at it one more time. Or it is to say everything we discussed, go back and change, let's have a public hearing in July and approve.
We didn't have a huge number of changes.
Mhm.
So, and we pretty well discussed the changes. So do we need to go, like we've done tonight, go through it one more time after she makes the changes and then in August, hold the public hearing?
I think it'd be a good idea.
You want to do it that way?
You want me to make changes and you guys look at it one more time in July and then have the public hearing in August?
Yeah.
And then after that, it'll go
Because I think
to,
what changes we made are pretty cut and dry.
and then after that, it goes to council and they do what they
Yeah,
do.
let's do that. Let's make sure we get that all right and we're all in agreement before we have the public hearing.
Yeah.
What if a person has a neighbor that all of a sudden gets a camper trailer or something like that? And it's questionable where he's parking it. What does the neighbor or neighbors have a right to object to it or bring it before? In other words, they're complaining, they don't like what's happening.
With the changes we're gonna make, or just with having a camper in general?
Yeah, or having their neighbor.
Since we're saying you can
Do they have any options?
So the public hearing is their chance to come and say, hey, the changes that you guys are planning to make, I'm in disagreement, and this is why I'm in disagreement. And they present that to you, and then you all take into consideration what they're saying, and once it is approved and it's an ordinance, if they have a complaint, they come to myself or my staff, and the codes enforcement officer goes and looks at it. If he finds that they are not in compliance, then he sends them a letter stating they're not in compliance.
I got one more thing. You probably might know what I'm gonna bring up. Something that's been going on a long time in the south end of town
What's that?
has never been cleaned up. It's basically a salvage yard with a lot of inoperable vehicles.
Yes, that
But
is.
he's not gonna be grandfathered in.
No, that is completely separate. Is it an old shop that has a sign out front that matches the sign over here?
No,
No.
No, go ahead and say who you're talking
the old donut shop.
Oh, that's,
about.
yeah.
And then there is a commercial building behind it that hasn't been, who knows if it's even safe. But then the yard right next to it's got all kinds of vehicles,
so-
tractors,
In their camper right
trucks.
Mhm.
There's there's
Dry
everything in the
cleaning
world
camper.
in there.
Yes, so without going into too much discussion, that's not directly what we're here for, and
Right.
we're on live. It is being handled through the codes enforcement department right now. We effectively, since it's a new year versus Mitch Gabbard, who's handling it, is new. We have to establish a new case this year since our nuisance cases were off the yearly calendar. So once the year closes, we start back over the next year. And so he is in process of getting that organized. Along with him coming in now, he has been, the council just established him as a public officer. So he can now write notice to appear tickets for any violations that are not, if you're not in compliance, you've been given a letter, if you choose not to comply after X amount of days, then he can write it, a notice to appear. Not saying that's the direction it will have to go, but that is an option now. So from that department speaking, there's options available now that there were not prior. So hopefully that will kind of spurs.
Well, I was just kind of clarifying there wouldn't be a,
He's not
Loophole
grandfathered
for a
in.
grandfather
No,
clause.
and that's very important to know that anything that is parked illegally now doesn't make it okay, doesn't grandfather anything in once the code changes. If they're non-conforming now, they will be non-conforming in 4 months when this is finally set in stone, so.
I'd like to just go on record and say thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
And I know the task, and
I appreciate that.
it's good work.
You have anything else to report this evening?
I do have, before we move on,
Sure.
I do have, so if this is set in stone, how is that gonna work timeframe? Is there gonna be a X day, it better be done or not, or is there gonna be like a grace period?
So typically what happens with these sorts of violations, we really do operate off of complaint. So if by chance the code enforcement officer is driving around or I'm driving around and I notice something that's not in compliance, then the homeowner will be notified. But typically what happens in any nuisance is we operate off of complaints. So if a citizen calls and says, hey, my neighbor has this ugly RV parked out front, I don't like it. Well, then someone goes out, they take pictures, they look at it, and if it is not in compliance, then we start the process.
Okay.
So. And it's important to note, it's not gonna be an overnight fix, but hopefully if citizens see a little flexibility, it will be easier to comply than.
Right.
And we really haven't had a lot of problems,
Mm-mm.
I don't think, have we?
No,
I mean-
it's just once one opens up,
Yeah.
you're so hyper-focused, and then you just start noticing.
Noticing.
all over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or you get the one person that gets the notice and they take an evening and drive around town and take pictures and say, this guy's doing it, this guy's doing it.
Do you have anything for community development?
I have a couple things. So we are starting to kind of pick up in the building inspection department. We hit 229 permits this year, this month. I just processed that today, which includes several rough-ins happening in Indian Hills. All those houses are coming together and they're coming together quickly. So if you haven't driven through there, it's kind of crazy to see. And then I just wanted to give a reminder, next month, there will be a public hearing, so we look forward to seeing you guys.
Do we have a public hearing for something besides this?
We do.
Next month? Okay,
Yeah, a business that's
Okay.
gonna operate.
okay, cool.
All righty.
All right, anybody have anything for staff? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. I have a second. I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, or lady.